One day, when I was 16 years old, I was sitting in a cold office in a school on a council estate in Luton. And a stranger walked in, said he was my careers advisor. He said, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I replied, "I don't know." And he asked me, "Well, what do you like to do?" And I said, "Play Monopoly. I like to be the banker." And he said, "That's what you should do." And I said, "What, be a bank manager like the guy down the road?" And he said, "No, a cashier." So what was I going to do with my life? Except that I was going to be a cashier or go on and do something that might go on and make a much bigger difference to the world, something that I'd be passionate about, something I'd be proud of. That question of what we do with our lives is one that I think all of us will have to face in the coming years as tech and AI become more powerful and start to change the jobs that we do. Are we going to accept that technology will take over our world, or are we going to rise above the machines? You know, the other day I was talking to my friends Mehmet and Trinity. They're pupils at the One Degree Academy, a school I co-founded to give opportunities to children in one of the poorest parts of London. And after our chat, I wondered about them. What will they do with their lives? Because work is really important to us. We spend a lot of our time doing it. It connects us to others. It provides us with an income, gives us a sense of identity. But now, there are all these headlines saying that the future of work is bleak. They're saying millions of people are going to be out of work. Why are they saying this? Well, they're saying this because there is no doubt that tech is changing our world. And it's going to be changing our world in a big way. Let's take a look at some examples. This is an automated warehouse from Ocado. There are hardly any people at all, but hundreds of robots, all working error-free. If this tech continues to evolve, what happens to the warehouse workers? There are over 500,000 alone in the UK. And there are also even more retail cashiers. With Amazon Go supermarkets, you can stuff your pockets like I did here. Just walk in and stuff your pockets and just walk out. There's no lines, no checkout, no cashiers. Here's me trying to shoplift. I got the bill 20 seconds later. But in the US, there are over 3.5 million retail cashiers. What will they do? And we've all heard about autonomous vehicles. In Phoenix today, you can get into a Waymo taxi that drives you completely autonomously without even a safety engineer in the front. Think Uber without the Uber driver. And companies like Einride in Sweden are doing the same with truck drivers. And there are over 600,000 truck drivers in the UK alone. What will they do? Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm going to be okay because these jobs are all routine and manual, and that's not me, I'm a professional, I'll be fine. But the machines are coming after professional jobs too, whether it's in banking, accounting, law, medicine, tax, whatever. And millions more people are employed in these kinds of jobs. Now, I have some friends who think that Mehmet and Trinity and the rest of us will all be fine. They say that people have feared machines for a long time, even since the time of the Luddites or when Frankenstein was published. And despite the machines coming in many countries, there's very little unemployment today. So why should we be afraid of the machines? We've been worried about them for a long time and nothing's really happened. But I think this time it might be different. And the reason why it might be different is one big reason, and that's exponential technology. Technology is changing in a huge way. Let me give you an example. This is the space shuttle. This was one of the best, fastest computers at the time in the space shuttle. And it did 480,000 operations per second. But the Google Mini does 1 trillion in 1 second. And the fastest computer in the world is Chinese. It's this one. It does 93,000 trillion operations a second. Actually, it's not the fastest. The fastest is now IBM's Oak Ridge Summit, which does double that speed at less than half the price. Actually, that's not going to be the fastest, because the fastest is going to be Intel's computer next year, which will do 1 million trillion operations a second. All of this pace means that today things are the slowest they're ever going to be. And all this is going to affect a vast array of technologies. All of these technologies are going to be impacted by that exponential improvement. And that means that we're going to see several revolutions in Trinity and Mehmet's lifetime, and probably in all of our lifetimes. So what does this mean for jobs then? If you take jobs like this, does it mean that they all disappear like this? And lots of people have tried to work out what's going to happen with jobs, and their guesses are all over the place. Some people are saying maybe 80 million jobs might be at risk. That's the Bank of England. Others are saying maybe it's only 10 million. And others still are saying, oh, we'll create more jobs than we'll lose. So the answer is we don't know what's going to happen with jobs. What we do know is that we are going to have to reskill. That whether or not there's mass unemployment, there will be mass redeployment and mass reskilling needed. So what needs to happen for millions of us to reskill? Well, I think firstly, governments need to act, and some are, like Singapore here. They give everybody, every citizen, £300 of future skills future credit to learn new skills in areas like automation, data analytics, entrepreneurship, advanced manufacturing. And I think this is something that all nations are going to have to copy. And we also need schools to prepare our children to take on this new learning. We need to create kids who are curious and who treat learning as part of failure. It's crucial that we prepare our children for this more uncertain future by teaching them not only what to think, but how to think. Because whatever they know now will become possibly obsolete very soon. But we can't just have governments to get this done for us, because it takes a long time for governments to act. Charities and companies also need to play their part. And I've got a friend, Herman, and he saw that in London we have too many people who are homeless, too many people who are refugees from war, and too many people who are long-term unemployed. So he started a charity called Code Your Future that trains these people in coding skills over 6 months. And at the end of that, they help them get a job. I think the world needs more people like Herman, and it needs more Code Your Futures. And companies are acting too. So this is Ernst & Young. They have introduced EY badges to help people learn new skills in AI and blockchain, etc. And once they've learned that learning, they get rewarded with a virtual badge, which they share on social media. And today, 80,000 people are trying to get an EY badge, just within the company alone. But actually, I think we all need to think much bigger. 100 years ago, we invented the concept of teenagers. Before that, teenagers were workers. And 80 years ago, we invented the concept of the weekend. Before that, people used to work 6 or 7 days a week. So I think we need something equally bold as that, for this new revolution. The 34-year-old Prime Minister of Finland, Sanna Marin, has proposed a 4-day week. And what she's saying is that actually people will be happier if, instead of you working 50 hours and me not working at all, maybe we should share our jobs, or share your job, and we both do 25 hours each. And I think she's onto something. But of course, if we do less work, we're going to have to figure out how we'll earn a living. And maybe the answer is to tax the machines. But that's the subject of another talk. I think the reality is, though, that we can't just rely on others to solve the new skills challenge. All of us individually have a responsibility to lead ourselves and inspire the people around us to meet this challenge. I think there are 3 things we need to do. I think we need to all be more curious, more adaptable, and more bold. Firstly, like our children, I think we need to be more curious. We need to learn as much as possible, especially about technology and the impact it will have on our world. As my friend Paulo Gallo says, in the age of machine learning, we all need to become learning machines. And we need to learn from others, people who we disagree with, and get out of our social media bubbles. Secondly, I think we need to be more adaptable, more open to change. And children are really good at this. They have this in spades. This is why they can learn new languages so easily, and why even toddlers can operate iPads. We need to remember to be more like children more often. And finally, I think we need to be more bold, brave enough to step outside our comfort zones and take more risks. And if you're wary of being too bold, then try lots of small step experiments so that if you fail, you learn quickly and you move on. As Yoda says, the greatest teacher failure is, and I think he's right. So I think being curious, being adaptable and bold will help us respond better. But I really think that this needs to be underpinned by a clear sense of purpose. I think it's really worthwhile to spend time on developing a clear sense of what your life should be about and what your passions are. So what's your purpose? You know, I see too many people at a certain stage of their life look back and wonder, how the hell did I get here? I think they would have ended up in a much better place if they'd really thought about their purpose and their passions. Because I think having that clear sense of purpose gives you that true north by which you can assess all the opportunities that will come your way in this machine revolution. So I think these four things, curiosity, adaptability, boldness, and purpose, are all really important for the mindset that we need to adopt for the machine age. And each of these have been really crucial to me in a journey that I've had over the past 10 years. In 2010, I met this very charismatic young man, Adnan Jaffrey, at an event. And he was really cheeky. He said, "You need to see me tomorrow for lunch because I'm going to tell you something that might change your life." And I happened to be free the next day, so I did see him for lunch. And he said, "You know, I'm running a Saturday mentoring program for 16-year-olds in a disadvantaged school in London. And the charity is called One Degree because one little intervention on a Saturday could lead to a big change in the trajectory of your life. Because one little intervention on a Saturday could lead to a big change in the trajectory of your life." And he really wanted me to visit the school and see the impact that he was having with these kids. And I said, I'm not interested in education. I'm only interested in technology and business. But, you know, there was something about him. He was so persuasive that I did go, and I saw the impact he was having. And he and I became really close friends. I saw him most weeks. And a few months later, he became ill. And in his hospital room, he asked me to walk over in his hospital room and hold his hand. He wanted me to promise him two things. He said, "If something happens to me, will you take over the One Degree mentoring program?" And I said, "Yeah, I will, but you know, you'll be fine soon." And second, he said that the government has just started this new idea where anybody can set up a free school. And he said, "Will you start up a new school called the One Degree Academy, aimed at the same kind of kids that society's forgotten about?" And I said, "No, I can't. I don't know anything about schools. I don't know anybody who's a teacher. I don't know anybody in government. And I don't even have kids. I can't possibly promise that." And he said, "Okay, will you at least try?" And I said, "Okay, I'll try." And a few days later, Adnan died of a rare form of cancer, aged 30. So a couple of weeks later, I was with many of his friends, and I asked, "Who's going to help me with this One Degree mentoring program?" And 4 hands went up. And those people are still involved with us, and we've now helped together 500 children pass their GCSE high school exams. And then I asked, "Who's going to help me set up the school?" And no one put up their hand. I said, "We're all busy professionals, just like you. And doing the mentoring is enough." And I said, "But I made a promise that I was going to try." And so over the next 2 years, at every gathering, I used to be that guy who says, "Hey, do you know anything about free schools?" And no one did. Until one day, someone said that their friend, Hassan, did. So immediately I took their phone and I called Hassan and I said, I need to see you tomorrow for lunch, and I need to tell you something that might change your life, just like Adnan did to me. And when we met, I said, I've been looking for somebody like you to do this with. And he said, I've been looking for somebody like you to do this with. So we started, there were 2 of us. And magically, over the next 6 months, we managed to find another 8 people, all somehow experts in education. And together, this team of people wrote a 120-page proposal to the government. And it was a really tough time. Even after we got accepted by the government, we went through hell with government bureaucracy and making sure the school opened, and it looked like it wasn't going to happen. So I took a year off work to make sure that the school opened. And it did open. In September 2016, the One Degree Academy in one of the most deprived parts of London with an incredible team led by Aidan, our inspirational head teacher. This captures the day that the school opened. It was a truly wonderful moment for our entire team. In 2019, the government came to do an inspection, and the lead inspector asked me what rating I wanted, and I said outstanding, of course. And he laughed. He said none of the last 100 inspections they'd done had led to an outstanding rating. 2 days later, he gave us our rating. It was outstanding. Together, our team has created a school that's setting our students up for future success. We're focused on reading, writing, maths, a strong sense of values and purpose. These kids could easily have been in the same type of school I was, in that cold room being asked to do something ordinary like a cashier, something that the machines are already beginning to do. Instead, they're getting a great education focused on human values. Instead, they've had 68 careers visitors in the last year alone. Instead, they're going to go on to do something really special. And so I think that if, like the students at One Degree Academy, we all choose to be more curious and learn new knowledge and skills, choose to be more adaptable and open to opportunities, and choose to be more bold and embrace something new, and we do this all with a clear sense of personal purpose, then I think we won't just survive the future of work, I think we'll thrive in it. And I think all of us, including my friends Trinity and Mehmet, can then rise above the machines.